This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Boston Capital Twitter, Steve, on the Hold the Green podcast.
All right, we are live. Tapping birdie.
All right, Carson Young is here.
I bet Ludwig at 28.
Let's go.
I bet him at,
I bet him at 25.
Low sevens. I think there's some guys in here we like.
Harris English at 7,300.
I love Brian Harmon at 3.5% this week.
All right, well, we are live. We fixed this graphic since this is not the Hold the Green podcast. As you can see, Andy is not here, but you have me, RB, with Rishi for Monday DFS show. Rishi, how we doing, buddy?
Doing well. Excited to chop it up with you this morning. Sorry for the graphic issues, but as you can see, it's RB and I on here handling technicalities today.
Handling the duties. Yeah, let's. We are hopefully doing a little bit better than Tommy Fleetwood. It's been talked about ad nauseum, but any sort of major takeaways from you on what we saw yesterday?
Yeah, no, honestly, it feels really good to be on the lucky side of the Keegan win there, which that's really like what it was. I mean, like 2 bomb putts. Fleetwood had so many chances to put it away. And yeah, I mean, it just feels lucky to be on the other side of that. If I was on the Fleetwood side, I would feel gutted. Seen that movie before, really, really unfortunate. But yeah, it was a crazy Sunday. Honestly, it might have been more enjoyable than the Sunday last week.
Yeah, very tough. I'm a big Tommy Fleetwood fan, not a big Tommy Fleetwood backer. You know, I have my own losers that I choose to bet on. I did have Russell Henley, so like seeing him with that chip in on the last hole and lose by 1 kind of sucked, especially because he caught a penalty on himself the day before. So just sort of one of those weeks. But yeah, I mean, any big takeaways with Keegan? Obviously, I think this puts the Ryder Cup stuff to bed. He obviously is going to be on that team now. But what do you think about Keegan?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really besides that. I mean, I thought it was inevitable that he was going to win one. I always thought he was going to kind of find himself into the Ryder Cup. And I think he just continued to show his form. And it goes the same for Fleetwood too. I mean, I think he's trending really well ahead of the Open. And honestly, I think the Henley is kind of the biggest takeaway. It's like after he won Bay Hill, kind of went downhill a little bit, and now he's trending back up after Oakmont. I think that was the biggest thing. And like you said, Henley really should have been in the playoff if he didn't really call it on himself. That was a crazy chip in on 18, but he was right there.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like he keeps popping up in these big events. Obviously, like you said, he won a signature event, almost won this one, played well at Memorial, played well at the majors. He's obviously he's probably going to be an automatic qualifier, I would imagine, for Bethpage. And just very, very underrated. But always a week at Travelers, always a weird week. Obviously after the U.S. Open, we had weather, we had lots of withdrawals. So now we go to a much different track. What do you know about Detroit Golf Club, and anything specific you are looking for in terms of set this week?
Oh man, I mean, I guess the narrative is always just like bombers, putters, and so I'm trying to get a little bit different that week. Although that's tend to work, I guess, when you look at winners like Bryson in the past, just people that have really just bombed it. You're not really looking too much at accuracy off the tee, that sort of thing. I've remembered annually getting really bored on the Fridays and Saturdays, just, it becoming a putting contest here. But yeah, that's kind of the narrative. So trying to find ways to be different at a course where things get a little tedious.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do think there are different ways you can win here. Like, there's not a lot of water, obviously not a lot of trouble off the tee, bunch of wedges, right? So I think, if it's firm and fast, I don't know how the weather's been up in Detroit. I assume they've gotten a decent amount of rain. And so I have to check on that because, if it's firm and fast and it's a wedge fest, I can definitely see you sort of steering away from the bombers a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, just go through the winners. Like you said, it's like bomb and gouge heavy, right? You got Bryson, you got Cam twice. I think we'll talk about more cams this week, I'm sure, and a lot of course history. So let's go ahead and dive in. Usually here we just start at the top. So that first range, there's only 3 guys here that are over 10K. Colin Morikawa at 10.9, Keegan, last week's winner, at 10.4, and then the Enigma, Patrick Cantlay, at 10.2. How do you rank these 3? Any sense of where you're going this week at the top?
Yikes. Yeah, no, I've taken a couple, looks at this. It is really tough clicks. Probably, and I would say if Keegan didn't win, probably would have been there. But given the win, kind of going to go away from that. Giving the keeping up with the birdies here and the birdie or better situation, it really is tough to click Colin or Cantlay just because they really haven't been amazing inside like 10 feet. Do I think that, a Ben Griffin, even like a Cam Young or further down the board, somebody's just going to outputt them? Certainly. So it is really tough to click one of these guys at the top. If I were to rank it as of now, probably because of driver distance, I'd probably lean Cantlay, just given that Keegan won last week, then Colin, and then Keegan. But there is certainly a scenario where I avoid all 3 at the top just to get a little bit different. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Where do you think the ownership's going to go here? Because I was going through the pricing, and my first look is okay. The guys at the top, I would normally need to go down to the 6K range, and there are a couple options, but really, I don't like the 6K range a lot this week, and I feel like that's going to be very common. And just sort of looking at betting cards and things like that, I've seen obviously a lot of Cameron Young. I've seen a lot of Luke Clanton, Max Grieserman, right? Mitchell, Fowler, Minwoo. Like I feel like people are going to go to balanced builds this week, which might make me force these guys a little bit more.
I was thinking about that as well.
I don't think I can click Colin this week. I think there's enough. He just hasn't been good. Obviously, there's some stuff out there with his putter. He's switching putters or experimenting with switching putters. I would say he's still probably the best player in this field. He's just not playing like that right now. So I'm kind of with you, and it pains me to say, but if I click anybody over 10K, I feel like it's going to be Patrick Cantlay. But I also think he might be the highest owned of those 3.
Yeah, my sense is he'll be highest owned of those 3 as well. And when you talk about getting different, I think it will be pretty different, because of balance. Like if people will go Cantlay, people will probably like Grieserman a ton this week, which we'll talk about in a second. So I think people will go balance that way. I think it might be an interesting way, and we'll probably talk about it more in a couple of days, playing 2 of those guys at the top. It's kind of a feasible build. I think it leaves you like kind of in that low 7s where there are some attractive options. So, but they are tough clicks. I'm not sure any of those top 3 guys have a better winning percent or more likelihood to win relative to some of these guys in the lower 9s. So tough choices, but I agree. I think Cantlay is probably going to be the most popular this week.
Yeah, and I think balanced builds will definitely dominate here a little bit. I think ownership in general is going to be very spread out this week. Like I don't see any mega chalk spot, even down low. Like I think there's a lot of options that we'll talk about, but I don't see any mega chalk options. I do think there's one as we get down below and talk about balanced builds. Like obviously, so let we grab a couple from the 9K range. Let's just grab Max Grieserman, Cam Young, anybody you want. You basically have 8K per spot. For those next 4 spots, right? So I scroll down there and I look at that 8K range, and I've kind of I've seen this all over betting cards, but it does feel like probably Davis Thompson is the highest owned in this range. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Davis Thompson on the 8s will certainly be popular. I think a lot of people kind of see this like this John Deere comp as well, potentially, Midwest. So yeah, and I think he's trending, and I think he makes sense on a course like this. So I think you'll see a lot of, like you said, a lot of those bills where it's Grieserman, Cam Young, Harry Hall, I think is going to be really popular. I've seen him on a lot of betting cards. Good Lord.
Crazy.
And then next
and like
Davis
honestly,
Thompson.
I think just all things considered, and he's probably going to be popular, but like a 9,800 Ben Griffin might be the best play there, right? Which is insane to say because he's not going to be low. He's obviously high priced. Okay, so in that 8K range, it's not a huge range there. What are your 3 favorites, and who are your 3 least favorites? Ownership aside, in the 8K range.
Yeah, ownership aside, I like Akshay a lot. The putter's been a little bit off, but he's obviously done well here. I think, on a course, like you said, sometimes we're going to be talking more wedges than we're going to be talking about bombers, given potential conditions. I think Akshay could be really, really interesting here. He's been awful, but I do think that Minwoo Lee makes sense on a course like this. The numbers haven't been there, but for all the reasons you'd say that you'd want a bomber here, I mean, Minwoo Lee could make a lot of sense here as well. And then the third guy who's been trending, who I like a lot, is Matt Fitzpatrick. He's, when he was in Oakmont, putter was on fire. He gained putting on the greens, I think 2 rounds last week, but approach has been getting there. Off the tee has been getting improved. I think it's a chance for him to kind of, come out, maybe get a T5, T10. Those are some of the interesting plays for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be pretty boring, and I'm definitely sticking with the bomb and gout a little bit here. So there's a couple guys here that I bet. I did bet Davis Thompson, like most people, this morning. Obviously hasn't been great, but he has been great here, and I was really impressed with the ball striking last week. I think he only finished 25th, but was pretty good across the board. So I like him a lot this week. I did bet Wyndham Clark. I just I don't trust him, but I don't trust anybody necessarily in this field.
Exactly.
And I just felt like I got a 45-1 this morning. And again, the stats were okay last week. He sort of fringe contended for a while last week on and off. The putter was really bad. But I do think this course and this type of field is perfect for him. Obviously, he's got an 8th and a 17th here in his 2 appearances. And that's before he knew how to hit an iron. So again, it was like all driver and short game, which he's a much better iron player than he was back then. So I definitely like him a lot. In terms of just, again, like the wedge play, I could probably get behind Ricky Fowler. I don't love the price of it. And I do like your Akshay call. So I would probably lean Fowler just because he's going to be way lower owned than Akshay, I think. Yeah. So for me, Fowler, Clark, and then all the Davis Thompson.
Are we overlooking like a driver in Keith Mitchell here? Definitely for first round leader.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously a course that should fit him really well. I tend to play him more when it's, long iron heavy, not so much wedges. He's been playing okay. The ball striking is always good. Like that's not the issue with him, but he is 0 for 2 in cuts here. I don't know if you want to make anything of that, but just as a tiebreaker, probably enough to keep me off of him there. All right. Into the very, very bulky range of 7Ks. Let's just start at like the mid to upper 7Ks. What are you looking at here?
Yeah. Thunder Bear, I think is pretty interesting with the putter. He's been playing pretty well. Yeah. And I think this is a course that could make a lot of sense for him. So I think that's pretty interesting. Full candor, as we were kind of talking about, course history, it's kind of out the door a little bit for me, frankly. It's just, I feel like a lot of people have kind of missed cuts, come back, won the tournament. It's just, It's weird that way. But yeah, Thunder Bear, probably my, the main look now that Kevin Yu withdrew, who I thought was
tough. Yeah. You this week.
Yeah. I thought, Michael Kim's a little bit interesting. I think he's properly motivated. I think he really wants to get into the Open. I thought he had 3 solid rounds last week. I think this is a course that could make sense. I really did like Stefan Jaeger last week. And I think for all the same reasons, minus the fact the putter wasn't really too great within 10 last week. I think he makes a lot of sense on a course like this.
Yeah, I think so. And there's so many options here, right? I think, again, ownership's going to be very spread out. I would imagine most teams this week have at least 2 in the 7K range, possibly 3, possibly 4, even possibly 5. I think a lot of these guys make a lot of sense. With the off the tee game, I'm kind of with you. I think Olesen will be popular. I think Jaeger could be popular. I've seen a lot of Matt Wallace love out there. I don't hate it. I just it's not exactly the golf course that I would pick for him. And also, like, I just feel like Matt Wallace lacks some upside. Like, maybe he'll finish 18th, 20th, 30th, something like that. But a couple guys that I did bet in this range. So I bit the bullet on Benny On, back to sort of what I said earlier. I have my own losers. He is one of them. He was also low-key great last week. Had one bad round. He's been going through some of the putter as well. He's been experimenting with putters, experimenting with aim point on and off a little bit, but he tied for 14th last week and gained in all 4 categories. He has finished tied for 13th here. And I just feel like, again, if he's going to win, it's going to be on this sort of bomb and gouge wedge fest, like not a great field. So I felt like that was good. And then kind of form, kind of course history, but Chris Kirk has been tremendous here.
Yeah.
21st, 12th, and 17th, and 14th in his first 4 appearances. He did make the cut last year, but didn't play well. But that was really skewed by a very bad round 4. I think, what did he shoot? I think he was 4 over or something like that. So he would have had another top 20 last year as well. And was very impressed at the U.S. Open. He tied for 12th. That really came out of nowhere. Kind of, again, skewed by short game. But anybody who can finish 12th in the U.S. Open, I will play them in the mid-7s at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So Kirk and Benny On, a couple of my favorites up there. As we go down a little bit into the lower 7s, and I'll just go through again the guys who I bet this week. I bet Griot. I've been on him a lot, and the win is coming. I don't think this is the ideal golf course for him, but I didn't really care. I just feel like he is just hitting the ball so well. He's like a top 20 machine this year. And I just think he's better than a lot of these players down here. So, if it is firm and fast, if accuracy becomes a little more important, I will obviously take him in a wedge fest, iron fest against anybody here. My last bet at this range was Victor Perez. Also there. Now, my thing with Perez is obviously what's the upside, right? Like, he did finish 9th in Canada. He was top 20 at the U.S. Open. It just seems like he has a lot of really good weeks where he finishes 18th. And that's kind of my concern. But he's won in Europe a couple times, came in 4th at the Olympics. He's contended at the Players. Like, I feel like he is the type of player who can win something like this. And 80-1 and the low 7s, I'm going to ride the form with Victor Perez.
I also bet Victor Perez.
Love it.
Think it's going to be, he's trending in the right direction. Like you said, I think it's one of those courses where he could win. Wouldn't be shocking. While we're on the Europeans, I also bet Jesper Svensson at 80-1. I think it came down from 90-1. If it plays like traditionally, I mean, Bomber, who can actually putt pretty well, played pretty well this year, not bad on those short approach numbers. So I think Jesper at this, in the lower 7s could be interesting. And then another bet I made was Michael Thorbjornsen. I think it's just a really good price. I think if he was at full health, I think it might have been closer to like 50, but you're getting like a 75 now because he's coming back from a wrist injury, which is tricky, but he says he feels good. He's working on the putting with the new caddy. And when you talk about upside, I mean, he really does have win equity in a tournament like this. If he plays well, absolutely stripes it. So it's going to be more of a question on health, but I'm kind of willing to take that bet.
Yeah, I thought about it. I just, there's certain injuries that I need to see, and a wrist injury in golf is definitely one of those. So I've been saying for months that I thought, this run of events, perfect for him, perfect for Luke Clinton, who's obviously in a much different price range, but I could definitely see that. I feel like Thor could get a little popular this week. Like, people just like to play him. But yeah, he definitely fits here. Let's see, just scrolling through here. Like, I've seen enough from Davis Riley that I would throw him probably in my player pool this week. I would probably throw EVR in there as well. And then, even though it's not a great course fit and he doesn't have good course history, Austin Eckroat is on the way back. And I think he's a better player, obviously proven winner than a lot of these guys down here. He played really well last week as well. Easily, probably should have finished in the top 10, but he made a few doubles down the stretch. But anybody else here in the 7s that you're looking at? And we'll dive down deeper.
Another bet I made on the Eckroat piece, actually, playing as 150-1 in this field feels like a really good value. In this pool of players. Another player I like a lot at 7 flat is McCarty. I feel like if it becomes, a putting fest, he can certainly keep up, especially on these bent POA. It's, again, it's not the exact course fit, but I think he can run hot with the putter.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's dumpster dive a little bit. Huge 6K range this week. I really didn't like a ton down at the bottom, but just sort of going through names that I would consider this week. So starting at the top here. So Quade Cummins, he's been on and off this year. He's certainly had some events where he showed something, and he finished 4th last week on the Corn Ferry Tour. Probably should have won, just had a really bad Sunday, especially really bad back 9, but pretty long off the tee. Putts pretty well. And again, I think the form is better than a lot of these guys. So he's interesting. I have no issue going back to Tristan Lawrence after his performance at the US Open. It obviously came out of nowhere, but he is a pretty prolific player, winner. He's a good putter, bombs it off the tee. I think that's interesting a little bit. Not a lot in that middle section. I don't know why John Pack is still 6,300. I'm sure you're going to probably play him as well, but like he's had a couple pretty good events in a row and the iron play is good. Like he's not going to win, but why is he 6,300 here?
Yeah, there are some really gross plays here. I feel like a lot of the plays that are like 68, 6,900 should be flipped with those that are like 62, 63 right here.
Yeah, like so I would definitely play John Pack. Like here, you're just looking for guys who have made cuts, who have some upside. Like I think Jackson Suber is another one. Yep. He's made a couple cuts in a row now. And this was actually the time of year, each of the last 2 years, that he got very hot on the Corn Ferry Tour. So maybe it just, just takes him some time. I've played Hayden Buckley a lot this year just because the stats have been okay. He's down here. He can definitely make a cut. Adam Schenk has some course history here. And he made the cut at the US Open, showed some stuff. So I think that's kind of where I'm swimming. But again, I'm going to be sort of with everybody else. Like I like the 9K, 8K, 7K range so much that I just don't think I'm going to need any guys from down here.
Yeah, 6K range is pretty gross. Some of those that, you didn't mention that I like, he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, but Sammy Valimaki was having a really good season earlier on. And I could see him making a lot of sense here. I don't know if he's missed well in his last 2 goes, but I don't know if he.
Yeah, he.
Whoops, sorry about
wild.
that.
No. He's wild. The ball striking has sort of gone away from him. But I think he would benefit from a course like this where there's not a lot of penalty off the tee. So, and we've seen the upside. Like he's almost won multiple times out here. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, if that's the mold you're going for, like play Toasty, play Carl Phillips, I think all those guys make a lot of sense. Patrick Fishburne, I saw some stuff in our Discord on Patrick Fishburne.
That's disgusting stuff. Justin Lowers played well here for a while. He has like some interesting course history here. Maybe he just likes the spot.
Midwest guy. He's from so he's from Cleveland. Just a short ride across the lake to Detroit. He definitely likes it here.
Going way towards the bottom for some of the numbers, Gordon Sargent kind of popped. Granted, he's not done a ton on the PGA Tour. He hasn't had a ton of time, but within certain, he bombs it off the tee. The putter's better than it showed in PGA tournaments, but I think it'll come. And I think this is the sort of environment where you can put up a big tournament. Yeah.
On that note, NCAA champion Michael Lasasso's here. I really don't know much about his game. Ole Miss was not a school that I really paid attention to their golf this year, but they have some players. And he just got really, really hot. Really since I guess like mid-April, and he just won everything. So he makes a lot of sense. Qualified for the US Open, but did not make the cut. Anyone else down here? No, I don't think so. I think that's it. So just sort of going back up, who's your winner and who's the highest owned on the slate this week?
That's a good question.
Any range.
Just taking a thought here as to the winner. I think the highest owned, oh man, it might be Davis Thompson, honestly.
It might be,
I've heard a lot of Davis, and I think it's like you said, it's like construction of the balanced builds. I think people are going to kind of go in a lot of different directions at the top because there's a lot of options. And then, but fixate on who they like in the eights. Winner. This is probably not going to help any ownership, but I think it might be time for Thorbjornsen to take a dub. I'm going to go here in the lower 7s for the winner.
Oh, nice. Yeah, look, I do think it's that kind of week. I have to take Cameron Young just because, that's what we do here. And his first last week obviously wasn't good, but he was there for the first couple of days and then he just wasn't. So I think this is a perfect golf course for him. Obviously, he's played well here. It should fit his game perfectly. I the 6th and a 2nd here, if I remember correctly. I'm with you. Like, I think Davis Thompson is going to be super, super high owned this week. I also think low key Max Gracerman is just going to be popular because he's like a safe name there that people are familiar with, like that they trust. He feels like almost as safe as Ben Griffin, and he's $800 cheaper. So I think one of those 9K guys is going to get a ton of ownership. It could be Luke Clanton for all we know, but
could be Harry Hall. Harry Hall pops on these greens.
But don't build a Harry Hall, Max Gracerman, Davis Thompson team and think you're getting away with anything. Cool. All right. Well, we will wrap it there, Reach. Appreciate you joining. We'll have to do this again. And best of luck this week.
All right, man. Cheers.
See ya.